Welcome back, dear viewers, and you are still watching the Breakfast Show. And in this segment of our program, we will talk about the activities of the 53rd Cairo International Book Fair, as a symposium was held on its sidelines, and it tackles the major global crises and their repercussions on women and girls in the Arab countries. We'll try to know more about this symposium and to what extent women and girls can benefit from it. Today we are joined by Dr. Youmn Hamaki, Professor of Economics at Youmn University. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Dr. Youmn, can you first tell us about the main points that were tackled in this symposium regarding women and girls?
Actually, a women Arab organization, they have inaugurated a very important report regarding how Arab women have been affected by crisis, all types of crisis, economic, financial, conflict crisis. Nowadays we can see what's happening in Syria and Lebanon, and besides the latest crisis, which is COVID-19, and to how extent women have been affected. And we all know that in all crises, women suffered a lot from the repercussions of such crisis. And due to that, the report has tackled how women have been affected, the positioning of Arab women regarding, economic participation of women, political participation, the rights of women, to how extent women have been subject to, violence in the area, to how extent the traditions are affecting the position of women and their participation actually economically, politically, and socially. And the most important goal for that is to specify what are the policies needed in order to activate the role of women in Arab countries. We all know that the economies of Arab countries are still dominated by the oil. Despite all efforts that have been done so far in order to diversify economic activities, but still, Arab countries are having a lot of resources that are not exploited actually to the benefit of their people. And from here it comes that when we talk about Arab economies, for me as economist, we have to differentiate between three types, or among three types of Arab countries. On top of them, Gulf countries that are rich countries, wealthy countries, and then the middle income countries. Egypt is there, and the low income Arab countries, which are still suffering from poverty, besides political conflict, are adding to such poverty, like the position in Sudan, the position in Yemen, and unfortunately, Lebanon nowadays has been included in this group of countries that are suffering from economic problems and poverty. So when we talk about to what extent these crises are affecting women, it will add to large extent to the participation of women to, activate the development in their countries. When we look to the real statistics regarding the participation of Arab women, we are going to find that it can be considered as the minimal compared to countries of the world. The participation, economic participation of Arab women on average 20%, which is quite minimal compared to other countries. It differs actually among Arab countries. Gulf countries, the highest participation of women. Despite that, we have to analyze such participation, to how extent this participation is affecting, economic life in these countries, and the diversification of economy. But still, the average is 20%, which is quite minimal compared to other countries. So from here it comes that women in Arab countries can be vehicle of growth and engine of growth for Arab economies. If we can, mainstream them into the developmental process in Arab economies and in actually activating and using the resources existing in the Arab economies in the right way. From here it comes that we have to address this crisis properly. We have to study quite well, number one, what is the positioning of Arab women and what factors are affecting such positioning, which means that we have to study quite well. And when we are going to study that, we are going to find two main factors here. First one is, the interpretation of religion, and this impact on this is having a very important impact on the participation of women. So this is a part of the story. Another one, which is to how extent women are having the capability and choices. When you give capability and opportunities, and this can go together, both of them should go together in order to find more opportunities of women. So this is what we have to work on it. And the report actually sheds a light on several direction, besides a very important factor, which is the reproductive role of women. Like for the Egyptian case, for example, we are going to find when we put the economic participation, we have to put with it the unemployment rate. Unemployment rate of women, Arab women, the highest too. And for Egypt, for example, we are going to find that women for the age from 20 to 30, the highest participation, the highest rate of unemployment, approximately arrive to 50%, which is very high. So from here it comes that the reproductive role is playing a significant, importance in the participation of women, either in economic, social, or political. But for political life, actually, we still know quite well that political participation of Arab women still confronting severe challenges regarding the existing of political parties, to how extent women are integrated in such political parties. So a lot of work should be done in order to integrate women into life and to play an active role to advance the situation of Arab economies. And if we add another very important challenge, which is climate change, we're going to find a lot should be done to see, this is another challenge. Why it is another challenge? Because if we revise, the Millennium Development Goals, which have been adopted by the world from 2005 to 2015, and these 8 goals haven't been actually achieved properly. Why? Because of the climate change. Climate change affected seriously the capability of countries, specifically if they are poor countries, to achieve to address poverty and to achieve equality and to address gender properly. So if we add nowadays, and we can notice to a large extent how climate change is affecting seriously all countries of the world, and more severe the developing and the poor economies. So from here it comes that women can be, affected negatively and can be agent of change for changing the situation in the Arab economies toward more exploitation of resources and more, yes, GDP growth and so on.
Yes, Dr. Youmn, how can this be achieved? Do we need to give them more extra training, improve, yes, their skills, engage them in more small and medium enterprises? How can we achieve this goal?
Yes, these are the tools actually, because when we study the position and the report, has mentioned several cases for Arab economies, and as I mentioned, this is differing from group of countries to others. But the generic strategy that should be performed is that first of all we have to identify the positioning of women, which means that number one, we have to refer to data and statistics, and here it comes that it has been mentioned in this forum that we still need more detailed statistic about the positioning of women in Arab economies. Why? Because, if we refer to primary statistics that are offered by CAPMAS and, the official statistical institutions, we are going to find that it proved to a large extent that there are gender gaps. This is quite clear. In different fields, in the three dimensions, environmentally, socially, and economically. There are severe gender gaps in Arab countries compared to other countries also. So if we ask the question, how to address such gender gaps, the first thing is to see what are the reasons, or to revise what are the reasons behind such gender gaps. And reasons, most of the studies that we have been through it, I supervise different PhD, theses to cover and to discuss, and some of them refer to applied researches. So we need applied researches to see to how extent, women are affected. And I have actually my experience in rural areas in Egypt, because I have a project as a foundation, NGO. I have a project to address poverty in rural areas. I have two projects in Bani Suef and in Hilwan. And if you address women, we are trying to give them training programs in ready-made garments, and then providing them with opportunities of job, either small business, like you mentioned, or by working for others in factories of ready-made garments. So by doing that, those who can work in factories are quite minimal. Why? Because reproductive role, women specifically in poor areas, they are taking a lot of roles and responsibilities. They are assuming to address all challenges confronting the family, which means if there is somebody ill in the family, it is the responsibility of women. It is the responsibility of women to cover the problems of education for their children. So a lot of responsibility, and this is preventing actually women from even having the skills of training, So we have to address, if you give women training, you have to look quite well to the factors that may prevent them from coming, and you have to direct the training program towards their, needs, which means that if we are starting our training program, for example, at 8 o'clock in the morning. Why? Because women there, they are, giving their children to schools or nursing and so on, and they start at 8 o'clock, and we have to finish by 2 or 3 so that they can go and catch their children. So from here it comes that this can be called as sensitive, gender-sensitive program to address women properly and to try to monitor to how extent they are benefiting from such training and coaching them towards opportunities of job. And actually the results are quite a story of success. Why? Because we succeeded actually to alleviate the poverty of more than 1,000 families. This is quite important, but still, if these families are not, interlinked with other projects regarding how women should be integrated to export, for example. By that, you are going to upgrade their skills, you are going to increase their income. But what we have as a first step is, we can call it income generating project, as just alleviating poverty. But, you know, these women have the potentialities and the capabilities to upgrade their skills. And from here it comes that when you talk about the participation of women in Arab countries, either you are talking about addressing climate change or economic participation or political participation, you cannot talk about such a goal without taking into consideration the Arab situation from economic perspective, which means nowadays if we can have a program of more integration among Arab economies, it will lead us to open millions of opportunities for women. Like, you know, we have investment coming from Gulf countries in the field of agricultural product or ready-made garments and so on. Or even nowadays we are moving toward digitalization and women can play a significant role. You know, in poor areas nowadays, women are using mobiles. And if you guarantee them some application on mobiles, you can activate their economic role in a better situation. So a lot of ideas can be done in order to activate the role of women. Still, if you have only 20% economic participation of women, this is telling you that you have human resources, unexploited human resources.
Yes, do you think that women in Egypt are facing the same challenges that face women in Arab countries?
Yes, of course.
They are facing the same challenges.
Yes, but nowadays we have done actually severe activities or important, very important activities in Egypt nowadays in order to enhance the situation of women. Still, we are lacking the visionary approach. What is the vision? So, you know, our Prime Minister declared yesterday that Egypt has achieved significant progress in exports. The export of Egypt, oil export, arrived to $12.9 billion. Non-oil, which is mostly important, arrived to approximately $32 billion. This tendency of enhancing export can open millions of opportunities for women. And women can activate such tendency to enhance export in Egypt. And if this is going to be integrated with the Arab economies, we are having different, you know, agreements with Arab economies, with the EU. We have a partnership with Europe. And our export of different types, despite that these exports succeeding, arriving to such figure in export, actually, the most important markets are EU.
Yes.
But still, you know, we need to activate such role. Still, small business, which we can find women participating in the major part of it, still their contribution in export still quite minimal. And if we activate the role of you know, medium as well as small industries, besides large industries, in export, this will lead actually to more and more opportunities, but you cannot find these opportunities positive without upgrading the capabilities of women. And this needs another strategy, how we can attract women towards the most important activities that can be quite relevant to them, to their capabilities, how we can activate the role of training centers all over the governorates of Egypt, and we can do it actually coping with Decent Life initiative. Because Decent Life initiative nowadays aiming actually to address the economic part of improving the quality of life for all Egyptians, specifically in the governorates and the villages, the small villages. In all these small villages, you have to specify what economic activities are feasible,
yes,
and how women can share and participate, and how you can upgrade their capabilities. But mostly important, you know, the logistics of doing that.
yes,
You know, how to integrate large with medium with small projects, so that to open more or to enlarge opportunities for women. Because if, like my project, if we are going to concentrate only on training women for like ready-made, you know, they are going to be skilled, but what about their opportunities? They are going to make activities, small and micro activities, and they are going to be, you know, out of poverty. This can be guaranteed. You know, it's a success story in it. But the next step should more upgrading skills, more integrating them with export, more, and this needs logistics. This means that we need these women to be integrated into medium companies and then large, and who is going to make the studies for addressing external markets and so on. So this is what we need to do it for this period to activate the role of women economically.
Yes, actually, as you've just said, that Egypt exports hit a record of $45.2 billion in 2021, which is the highest in Egypt's history. This is one of the achievements.
This is quite important,
yes,
but if you analyze the number of if you analyze, you know, the structure of exports, you can notice that this may not be sustainable. Why? Because most of this exported product are chemical product.
Yes.
And the main reasons besides this increase was actually the disruption in value chain and the role of China. So what we need to do to sustain this figure and increase it, and actually we have the potentialities, yes, to do that in Egypt, is to specify which industries you have a comparative advantage, to start, for example, in ready-made clothes, in food industries, in, you know, we have furniture, we have leather product, all this, Egypt is having very good comparative advantage by strengthening, you know, the capabilities of small industry and medium and large towards exportation. You are going to find actually we can achieve the $100 billion, which is the aim of our export, yes, quite easy. Yes. But it needs more work to be done.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Youmn Hamaki, Professor of Economics at Shams University. Thank you for being with us. Dear viewers, a short break and we'll be back, so stay tuned.